Ciao e benvenuti al Tavolo Italiano. Welcome to the lesson on conjugating regular verbs in the conditional tense. Two real quick footnotes before we start. This lesson assumes that you know how to conjugate Italian verbs in the present and future tense, and that you understand subject pronouns and the basic conjugation principles. Secondly, as always, it's important to remember that there are always exceptions to every rule, and this is no exception. The conditional tense expresses an action that could, would, or should happen at times depending on something else happening. Examples of this include: I would swim. I would play guitar. I should believe in you. It could rain. It is actually easy to conjugate in the conditional tense. It is much like the future tense in that how it starts the conjugated endings with er, and ir. Just like the future tense, the endings for all three conjugations are the same except for the first letter of the conjugated ending, which is e for verbs ending in are and ere, and is I for verbs ending in ire. In addition, the same irregular future stem works for the conditional tense. Now let's take a look at the conjugated endings. For verbs ending in are, they are erei, eresti, erebe, eremo, ereste, erebero. Okay, you'll notice a lot of similarity between the two, meaning the conditional tense and the future tense. Verbs ending in ere, identical to are. Ere, aresti, arebe, aremo, areste, and erebero. For verbs ending in ire, you'll notice all that changes is the e changes to an I. So it's ire, iresti, irebe, iremo, ireste, erebero. Hence, going back to our handy-dandy little math problem we like to use to illustrate conjugation principles, we have the infinitive verb minus the infinitive ending plus the conjugated ending equals the conjugated verb. Example, guidare, to drive, minus are leaves us with guid, plus rei, which is the ending for are verb, equals guidare, or I would drive. Okay, let's look at three verbs, starting with pensare, representing the are family of verbs. Io penserei. Tu penseresti. Lui, lei penserebbe. Noi penseremmo. Voi pensereste. Loro penserebbero. There you have it. Now let's move on to credere. Io crederei. Tu crederesti. Lui, lei crederebbe. Noi crederemo. Voi credereste. Loro crederebbero. So you can see the endings are exactly the same for are and ere verbs. Also want to point out that, like the future tense, for irregular verbs that have an irregular stem, you use the exact same irregular stem that you do for the future tense. So for instance, avere, you would use avr, avrei, avresti, etc. Okay, now let's look at partire. Okay, partirei, partiresti, partirebbe, partiremmo, partireste, and partirebbero. Okay, so therefore the only difference here is you have the IR in the rest of the ending instead of the ER and the rest of the ending as in the other two conjugations. So is it beginning to sink in a little bit? Looking a little familiar? Okay, let's test ourselves on it a little bit and see how we do. I'll give you the verb in Italian, and you translate it into English. I'll give you about a 4 or 5 second pause. Mangeresti. You would eat. Insisterebbero. They would insist. Capirebbe. He or she would understand. Sentiremo. We would hear. Parleresti. You would speak. Piangerei. I would cry. Vinceremo. We would win. Leggerei. I would read. Finerai. You would finish. Canterebbe. He or she would sing. Okay, now let's try going from English to Italian and see how you do. So you have to select the verb for the English phrase that I give you, and then you'll have to conjugate it in the conditional tense. Here we go. I would eat. Mangerei. We would insist. Insisteremo. You all would understand. Capreste. You would hear. Sentiresti. You all would speak. Parlereste. You would cry. Piangeresti. I would win. Vincerei. He or she would read. Leggerebbe. We would finish. Finiremo. They would sing. Canterebbero. E grazie mille. There we have it. Thank you for studying with Tavolo.italiano.com. Also want to remind you that there's a lot of materials online now available at Tavolo.italiano.com that are all for free. Variety of these YouTube videos, online interactive exercises, printable material, crossword puzzles, the list goes on, as well as our free Italian-American pen pal program. So we sincerely hope that you come visit us at Tavolo.italiano.com, where the goods are always for free. Grazie mille, ciao e parla italiano.